one of the things that people like to throw up is media bias. And I get where they're coming from, right? I trust me, I get it. I am the guy who kind of really championed that, or one of the guys that really championed that, as media bias being a thing. Later on in my life, I realistically kind of figured out it was not so much media bias as just, there could be just people have preferences, and at the end of the day, Microsoft is responsible for Microsoft, and so maybe there isn't media bias, but maybe there's just a situation where they're being called out correctly, and I think that's the case more often than not. Is there still issues where people hold a little bit of a grudge? There could be a possibility of that, but there's always that in every facet of life, and it's just so funny to see people continue to harp and fall back on media bias anytime something happens with Xbox Series X that's negative or positive with PlayStation 5. So this should be an interesting video, and I'm looking forward to actually hearing some feedback on it. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with yet another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. So, the easiest thing you can do is just like it, all that kind of good stuff. Shout out to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, everybody in between. You guys are incredible. One thing that I've noticed is early on with the Xbox One, I was a big Xbox fan. I bought it for the games. Obviously, they had a better lineup than PlayStation at launch, so that's why I bought one. Plain and simple. I didn't really care about any of the nonsense. They had reversed the policies that made the Xbox One anti-consumer for in large part. You still had to connect, but they would remove that like 4 or 5 months after launch. Not really an issue or deal breaker. I kind of like to connect. I like some of the features that it offered with some of the games that weren't even full Connect games. Like in Rise, you could command like the vaults with the arrows and stuff with it just by yelling. I liked it where you had to be quiet, and if you were too loud in Dead Rising 3, it would attract zombies to your position or whatever. There was just multiple things, like you could use it as a camera behind you in Forza. There was really cool instances of it being used to pretty good capabilities, and I'm fine with that, right? It didn't really take anything away. You could really play the games without those things, but it enhanced and made your immersion level all the better. So, again, I didn't really have a problem with that. A lot of people thought, including myself, that people were being, or media outlets were being unfair towards the Xbox One just because the botched launch and things like that, which, looking back in retrospect, Microsoft clearly deserved a lot of the things that they got for that, to go out and try to take away consumers' rights. I think that they probably bit off a little more they can chew, and people just weren't ready for that. And I was out there, I felt like their games weren't getting a fair shake, and just because they're Xbox, they must be reviewed at a lower level and things like that. It just, to me, it never made sense that their games would score so low. But here's the thing. I'm playing Xbox games. I'm such an Xbox fanboy at the time. I got my blinders on. I didn't get a PlayStation 5 until 2015. I'm playing PlayStation 5, but I'm begrudgingly kind of playing it. I'm not really focused on playing it. I'm not playing it the way, somebody who's not biased would just go in and play. I'm like, I'll play this game, but, then I'm getting right back on Xbox. That was my mentality. And so I would, didn't really seem to savor and relish my time on the PlayStation 4. And so, I'd want to get back to the Xbox. And I thought those were the top quality games. It wasn't until around 2018 where I played God of War, Detroit, and then Spider-Man back to back to back. And then Xbox's big games were Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, and PUBG, where I noticed how incomplete all of Microsoft's games were. Even though PUBG isn't a Microsoft game, still, it was their big game that year. You just sort of noticed how unfinished these games are, and and just how the low quality they are. And so at that point, you start to go, well, maybe it's not media bias. Maybe it's not biased at all. Maybe it's just honest. These people are being honest about this stuff, and it is still opinions. So if you don't agree with them, I think that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, I just feel like, looking back at it, it was really honesty. And IGN, I gave them a bad rap too. They're the largest publication when it comes to gaming, okay? So they're obviously going to cover stuff. Now, Xbox fans are realistically kind of taking a lot of things the wrong way. They reviewed the game. Grounded, okay? Now, the interesting thing about that is Grounded is a preview program game, but it is for sale, meaning that it's fully available and they're capable of being reviewed. And it got a 6 from IGN. A lot of Xbox fans are hating on this, but keep in mind that IGN also gave a really good review to the preview program PUBG. So, again, is it really biased or is it just being truthful? Here's the thing. If you just look back and you look at the history of Xbox games this generation, they haven't been complete. They haven't been particularly good. Even going back to Recore, that game was broken and incomplete and had long load times. You know, you look at Crackdown 3, same thing, broken, incomplete at launch. State of Decay 2, same thing. Sea of Thieves, same thing. Bleeding Edge, same thing. Grounded, same thing. It looks like Halo Infinite might even be the same situation where you have these games that absolutely are incomplete, unfinished, and yet, you know, they're still releasing them into Game Pass or whatever. So that's a problem. That's not bias. Look at their history. They're not. It's because the games aren't great, folks. I hate to be that guy, but it's because the games just simply are not great. It's not that they're being biased against Xbox or they hate Xbox or hate Xbox games. It's the fact of the matter is that these games are not good games. They're low quality, they're unfinished, and they get the scores that they pretty much deserve. Now, Sea of Thieves a couple years later, really good game. Like IGN re-reviewed it after a couple years, and I think they gave it an 8 or an 8.5. Well deserving. The problem is, for 2.5 years, that game had next to no content when it launched, right? Like, that's the difference. So those games all get the scores they deserved at launch. And then, you know, obviously, the type of games that they are, you can update them later. But there's a way to do games as a service and still have a lot of content at launch and then continue to add the content later on. I think that that's probably the best way to kind of describe it. So a lot of people are really taking it out on IGN because IGN, you know, reviewed that game poorly. And that's not even the only thing. Like, IGN also did a couple of tweets and some Instagram pictures and posts with what are your predictions for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X as far as price. And they did this little meme from Ghost of Tsushima with the PlayStation logo on one guy and an Xbox logo on the other, and it shows the Xbox guy with a $5.99 price and the PlayStation logo guy with a $4.49 price, and you know, he cuts the Xbox guy up or whatever. You know, it's just funny, but Xbox fans literally take everything to the extreme. Right? They take everything to the extreme, and that's super unfortunate because it's just a joke, right? Like, at the end of the day, they're not saying, you know, anything specifically bad about Xbox. It's like people with Xboxes have gotten to the point where they're so hurt over everything that even the smallest, even funny jokes just seem like they hurt their feelings. Like, I feel like even though people are embracing the whole Craig the Brute meme, that realistically, under a mask, they're just really still upset and upset about that. Because trust me, as somebody who was an Xbox fan from the beginning, those X-Bone, when everybody would call it an X-Bone, you know, that annoyed the heck out of me. Like, I didn't like that. I didn't understand it. They're obviously making fun of it, saying it was boned. You know, it was just one of those things where, you know, you don't understand what's going on there. And, you know, I just really feel like it's a bit of a misunderstanding there. It's like jokes can be funny, and that's what that is, you know. Like, I thought that the little meme thing was funny. All the Craig memes are funny, but, you know, I felt like a lot of people just think everything is just naturally trying to drive console wars or it's biased or something like that, and I don't feel like that's the case with this in particular. So I feel like people are really kind of just hating on IGN for no reason. Again, I've been there, right? It's kind of hypocritical for me not to admit that, hey, I felt like they've been you know, a little bit rough on Xbox. But then over the last couple of years, I've really kind of felt like maybe, just maybe, it's Microsoft's own fault with a lot of this stuff. So a lot of Xbox fans are kind of living out there on this ledge where everything that's negative. Anything that possibly could happen that's negative around Xbox is their fault, right? Like, oh, Apple is so bad because they won't let xCloud on iPhones and iOS, right? Well, that's just part of who Apple is with their own services, right? You've got to be able to check and make sure the quality's there. I don't really see a problem with it, but it's like always somebody else's fault. You know, and I feel like that's a lot of way it is with a lot of the Xbox fans these days as well. Nothing is ever Microsoft's fault. Everything is always somebody else's fault. And I feel like that it's the reason why, probably one of the main reasons why Xbox continues to be uninteresting, and the sales aren't good, and people kind of do make fun of it. But I don't think that's bias. I think that they're just an easy target with the way that they are, and just in general. I just feel like that's something that they're going to have a hard time escaping in terms of the future and things like that. So this is an interesting topic. I don't feel like IGN's being bad or mean or biased towards Xbox. I just think that they're just having some fun, and they do it to both sides. But I would love your guys' thoughts and opinions on this. Maybe let me know down below exactly what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. If you're joining me for the first time, thank you so much. Please subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell. I really appreciate all the support. Everything I do is unscripted and off the cuff, and I'm very passionate about what I do, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching one of my videos. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. Rack 'em up, and game on, my friends. Game on. Crapgamer, out.
Unscripted.